Hello, welcome back to Aetheral Space 3.10. Hello.
Aetheral Space? This is my
You've heard of
favourite
it.
series. I have. It's like Fate Stay Night and Star Wars mixed together, but like 10,000 times better. Wow, I'm so glad I left a review on Royal Road.
You did leave a review on Royal Road. Did you guys?
And for that, I've been allowed to live in the new world.
Yes. And I'm going to change the shape of this world.
You either read Aetheral Space or die. Alright, so, yes, last time on Aetheral Space, Dragon and his friends were headed to the Nyang, but lo and behold, there's some girl with droids waiting for them. So is the Fifth Dead, as well as Muzazi and Marie Hazard. Will Dragon make it out of this one alive, or will he perish in the slums of Talden? Find out this time on Aetheral Space 3.10.
Imagine the Aetheral Space rap that's like in the dub.
So, my name's Dragon. I got it going on.
But anyway, yeah, that's a very good summary, actually. There were also
Thank you.
The girl whose name was Novelle. She also had some buddies with her, so maybe they will influence matters.
Yeah, we don't quite know their names yet, or like if they were mentioned, it was like one time. But there's a pink-haired guy with a bow, and there was another dude that had something else.
Yeah, we don't know, but he had a very long grey braid.
Yeah, very long gray braid. Some might call him Greybeard, but gray braid.
Okay, well, let's get into it.
Gandalf the gray braid. Okay. Hang on. Ooh, heartburn. I should have popped a Tums before this.
It's because you're so excited.
What do we do? Said Ruth cautiously, looking a second away from summoning her armor as she glanced around the nearby crowds anxiously, waiting for attack. So this is actually one of my problems with Aetheral Space is I use the British spellings for words like armor, and it really throws off my immersion, because in a perfect futuristic society, we would have eliminated the British.
America, the Gene Tyrants got rid of that.
We move, said... Oh, wait, no, this is Skipper's serious voice. We move, said Skipper seriously, pushing past the rest of the group and beginning to stride towards Roz. We'll grab him ourselves. Can't afford to wait for security. Despite the clear doubt on her face, Ruth followed after him, with Dragon and Bruno following soon after. The surprise of the Aether Ping had messed up their formation somewhat, and now Bruno was the one heading up the back of the group, subtly holding his palms to the air as he maintained a force field behind them. Roz looked up as they got closer, and his black eyes widened to the size of saucers as he saw 4 people directly approaching him with clear intent in their eyes. Is Roz the guy that hired them again?
No, he's the journalist that everyone wants.
Oh, okay, he's the Umbran. He scrambled to his feet, his chair dropping to the ground behind him, and turned to run. Ruth, said Skipper without hesitation. There was a flare of red aether from Ruth, and a second later she was in full skeletal rossetto, pinning Roz to the ground with one clawed hand. The Umbran flailed on the ground, shouting and yelping with the fear of someone who thinks they're about to be killed. Excuse me. No! He shouted. No, 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 no! I'm sorry! Someone help me! Why? Please! We're not here to hurt you! Hissed Ruth, voice turned hollow by the metal mask, but Roz's panic was such that he couldn't even hear her. The crowd around them cleared some space once the altercation became obvious, but nobody came walking in to assist the obviously terrified Roz. Dragon found his faith in humanity growing every single day. Still, this was convenient for them. He stepped in closer to Ruth. Just knock him out or something, he said hurriedly. Whoever did that Aether Ping would still be in the area, after all. They couldn't afford to sit around. I saw security officers back there a little while ago. We'll have them help us transport the guy. Help! Help! Roz went on, his voice becoming increasingly grating to Dragon's ears. Someone! I'm being killed!
Every time I see Dragon, I'm like, I thought I killed you.
Yeah, we're gonna finally get to the dragon in D&D, and you're gonna be like, this bastard.
So, you're the one.
Ruth glanced towards Skipper, face unreadable behind her mask. As she did, Dragon noticed a slight scuff on one of her shoulder plates, the slightest of dents as well. He frowned. That hadn't been there before. Skipper nodded, and a swift chop from Ruth to the back of the neck stopped Roz's complaining. The reporter hung limp, and as Ruth stood back up, she slung him over her shoulder. While this had all been going on, Bruno had been keeping watch over the crowd, eyes alert and cloak hanging over his frame to conceal any movements he made. Security business! He barked out, clearly doing his best to sound official. No need to interfere! Some booing went through the crowd. A 9 like this wasn't the kind of place you'd find many fans of law enforcement, but fortunately it seemed that truly nobody cared enough to intervene. Still, Dragon doubted anyone had bought that story. They weren't exactly wearing security uniforms after all. Mr. Adrian, said Skipper, voice firm, joining Bruno and watching the crowd. You said you saw some security a little while ago? Dragon nodded. Just a few corners back. Okay, you lead the way there then. We don't have the time to wait for the undercover guys. And with that, they started walking, their strange procession passing through the crowd like a ship on the ocean. Even as Dragon led the pack, he couldn't help but feel nervous, eyes flicking around as he expected an attack from any direction. Security had been just a few streets away, but they were moving against the crowd now, and progress was so much slower. Suddenly, Dragon took in a sharp intake of breath, and a burst of involuntary blue aether hopped out of his skin for a moment. Another ping, said Bruno. This one came from another direction. Lots of people are interested in our Sleeping Beauty here. Said Skipper, making finger guns with his hands. That's fine. That's cool. If we could, pick up the pace here, Mr. Adrian. I'm trying, grunted Dragon, regaining his composure. There's people in the way, damn it. This shit isn't easy. Skipper sighed, ran a metal hand over his face. Fine. Okay. And with that, he pointed a finger up towards the sky, and the boom of a heartbeat shotgun rang out. The crowd's babbling was instantly cut off, replaced by panic shouting and screaming as people did their best to get away from the supposed gunman, and Dragon suddenly found his path forward very clear indeed. Not exactly subtle, said Bruno. If it works, said Skipper. Mr. Hadrian, if we could keep moving. Dragon nodded hurriedly. He'd never heard Skipper sound so anxious before, not even when he'd been strapped to a wall missing one of his limbs. He didn't know that much about Skipper, true, but he knew enough to recognize they were in a bad situation. He led them around the corner, almost running into the two security officers coming the other way. They were clearly responding to the gunshots they'd just heard. Spotting the unconscious body Ruth was carrying, the first of the two armored officers raised his plasma bow and pointed the sharp crystal arrow towards their group. Drop it! The officer commanded, voice deepened and distorted by his helmet. If they're all working for the government, wouldn't the guy have been like, hey, by the way, these guys are gonna go get Roz, so fuck off?
It's sort of like a secret thing.
Oh, shit! So these guys weren't part of the recovery operation. From their perspective, they were just a gang of crazies that had knocked a guy out and were carrying them away. Dragon glanced at the arrow, ignoring the second officer going for his radio. The material looked like hangite, a substance that became significantly more durable when fed a current. So long as the bow supplied the arrow with power, the plasma inside was secure, but the second it launched, the arrow would smash and release its payload with ease. Easy there, said Skipper, grinning unconvincingly. This is all a misunderstanding, buddy. I said drop him, the officer said, jerking his bow again. Ruth shifted her body slightly, presumably to drop her burden on the floor, but she was interrupted by a quiet, but clear, rattling sound coming from the ground. Dragon looked down. There, right next to the officer's feet, a small pebble was rolling to a halt. He furrowed his brow, turned to look at the crowd around him. Had someone thrown a rock at them? Move! Screamed Bruno. Bruno grabbed Dragon with one hand, Ruth with the other, and pulled them away from the rock with all his strength, Skipper having already leapt away. Skipper doesn't give a fuck about his friends.
Fuck them kids.
I love that. The security officer, pointing his bow at them again, barked some order, but his attention was quickly stolen by the pebble as well. What happened took less than a second. The pebble began to shiver on the ground, that same hollow rattling coming from it, before coming to a sudden stop. Then, with a fiery red glow, it exploded. As Dragon was pulled away from what was now clearly a bomb, he saw a storm of chaotic red aether burst out from within the rock, turning into fire and smoke soon after coming into contact with the air. The sound was deafening. The boom of the explosion was replaced near instantly by a high-pitched ringing in Dragon's ears. Oh my god, he's fucking using the Chidori. Bruno let go of Dragon, leaving him to fall backwards on the ground, and thrust his palm outwards, presumably creating a force field around their group. The crowd went from an ocean to a river, panic driving them to flee the scene in record time, effigies and tents annihilated under the stampede. Before long, their group and Roz were the only ones left in sight, along with the charred remains of the two security officers, their armor partially melted. So, interesting. This is already going way different than I expected. What I expected was there were going to be individual fights clashing of the factions, like, off to the side while they were trying to pursue their goals. But right off the bat, we've cleared away most of the festival. And there's just, like, empty space now. Which, I'm wondering how this is going to turn out when all the factions come into play. Their armor partially melted. Skipper said something to Bruno, pointing his fingers in opposite directions in preparation for heartbeat shotguns. That damn ringing meant that Dragon couldn't hear them, though, so he had to watch their lips closely to get some idea of what was being said. Under attack. Do you see them? Bruno was saying something alongside those lines. Skipper babbled so fast Dragon didn't catch any of it, then came out with Aether Ping. As the ringing cleared from Dragon's ears, he felt the now familiar tingling of an Aether Ping passing over him. Dragon clambered to his feet as the sound of burning raged around them. "How many are there?" shouted Ruth, the volume of her voice proving that she still couldn't quite hear properly. Roz was still slung over her back. "Skipper?" questioned Bruno, glancing towards his captain. Skipper must have been the one who released the Aether Ping, then. The man himself bit his lip. "No clue," he said. "They must be cloaked." As he dusted himself off, Dragon looked at Skipper incredulously. "Cloaked?" he said, as if the word itself were ridiculous. "What do you mean, cloaked?" "They're using aether to hide their aether," said Bruno, moving his hands to keep the force field around them consistent. Why wasn't Skipper doing that?
Well,
Skipper? Fucking Skipper. Doesn't matter right now. Skipper, we need to move. Grab a vehicle and get out of here.
We'll get into some mechanics of this and why it isn't just a thing you're doing all the time.
Okay. We don't stand a chance out in the open like this. Skipper nodded grimly. You're absolutely right there, Bruno. We'll make a run for the nearest parking platform, improvise from there. Mr. Adrian, Ruth, you guys good to move? Ruth nodded, and even as his body aches in complaint, Dragon did the same. Being pulled away... ached in complaint, yeah, there we go. Being pulled away from the explosion hadn't been the most pleasant rescue in history, but he'd take that over being blown up by another one of those bombs any day. Okay, said Skipper. Give up the shield behind us if you can, Bruno. Follow me, now! And with that, Skipper turned on his heel, emerald aether flaring around him as he went for their escape route, a gap between two burning stalls that would take them outside the festival grounds. That hope of escape existed for around 3 seconds, tops. As Skipper went to enter the alley, there was a high-pitched whistling sound from the air, and a second later, a dozen bright pink arrows buried themselves in the ground right in front of Skipper's feet. Immediately, he screeched to a halt, throwing his arms out to prevent the rest of his crew from coming too close to the attack. The projectiles were huge, easily a meter long each, and dug into the concrete like fence posts in soil. Running away? Said a clear voice from behind them. That's kind of lame, you know? Oh wait, is this Noel talking? Is it? Should I redo that? Running away? Said a clear voice from behind them. That's kind of lame, you know? Dragon turned around. At the other end of this little corridor of stalls stood a young girl in a winter coat, blue hair matching her bright blue eyes. Cogitant. Ruth's body stiffened next to Dragon as she spotted the new arrival. Sorry, I thought it was the bowman talking. Next to the young cogitant girl stood a much taller young man. Her head barely reached his torso. He had ashen skin and gray hair tied back into an absurdly long ponytail. He held pebbles, just like the one that had exploded, one between each of his knuckles. 3 enemies, then, judging from the angles the arrows had been shot at. This girl, the bomber, and an unseen sniper. With the arrival of enemies... Are these bolts, by the way, made of aether?
We don't know what they are yet.
Oh, that's a very interesting choice. 3 enemies, then, judging from the angles the arrows had been shot at. This... Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry, my heartburn is... Oh, bad timing. With the arrival of enemies, Skipper stopped displaying any kind of anxiety. Instead, he lifted a hand and gave an easy wave. Yo, he said, nodding his head towards the pink arrows. These things yours? The girl chuckled. Look at the angles on those things, old man. There's no way I could have shot them from over here. Ah, said Skipper, rubbing a hand over the back of his head. You've got me there. What can I do for you, kids? At the word kids, the girl's smug smirk turned into a frown. This was clearly someone who didn't like being underestimated. Her gaze slid past Skipper, settled over the unconscious Umbrant on Ruth's back. You've got something we need, the girl said, ice cold. Hand him over, and nobody needs to get hurt. Dragon glanced at the corpses of the security officers on the ground nearby. Did they not count, then? Fucking... Dragon! Dragon, you need to turn it off for a second. There's a fight going on. Again, Skipper sighed, and when he replied to the girl, he crouched down, as if to speak to her at eye level. How not to talk to short people comic.
Exactly, that's exactly.
Dragon watched as the girl's pupils dilated slightly with anger and had to suppress his laughter. There was no way Skipper didn't know what he was doing. It's true, didn't Dragon say one of his best skills was pissing people off to no end? That's not how you conduct a negotiation, kiddo, he said, wagging an admonishing finger. Polite adults need to introduce themselves first, yeah? My name's Skipper. What's yours? The girl scoffed. There's no way I'd... My venerable self is Rayanj Patel, the man with the pebbles said, his voice buttery smooth. This young maiden is Noelle Edmonds. We work for the warrior known as the Citizen. The girl named Noelle cut in. We work with the Citizen, and he wants that guy... Hand him over. Skipper raised an eyebrow. Well, that's nice and all, sweetie, but I don't think you've passed math yet. It's 3 against 5. I mean against 4, you see. Those aren't good odds for you now that you've blown your surprise attack. Noelle chuckled, her smug smirk turning into a wicked grin. Just 3? Dragon suddenly became aware of the sounds of skittering in the shadows. From between every crevice, from behind every broken stall, metal bodies moved into view. Both ground-based and airborne drones surrounded Noelle, at least 5th in total, beeping in...
That's 50, that should be.
50, that makes way more sense than 5th. Beeping and clicking as they communicate with each other in automatic speak. So, I have a question. Do drones in this world, do they work on inverse law of ninjas rules?
Well, these are sort of like a drone as we know it, rather than a robot. Like it's the flying or like a metal spider.
But automatics in general, do they work on inverse ninja rules where if we see a lot they're going to be weaker and if we see a few they're going to be stronger? Or does the supremacy have like armies worth of like Samael level ones?
Well, it depends. So the Samael level ones are like your custom PC that you spend a lot of money on.
Gucci automatics.
Yeah, exactly.
In the Darman video, is that a Rolls Royce automatic? That's like 350,000 credits.
Did you see what Samael posted on Instagram?
Samael, you're just okay. I gotta get back to the book. Sorry. Dragon gulped. The telltale barrels of plasma blasters were visible between the mandibles of each airborne drone. Without a doubt, they could turn this place into a burning rainstorm in the space of a few seconds. He didn't even want to know what the ground-based ones could do, crawling around on the floor like spiders. Ah, said Skipper, eyes flicking from drone to drone. I guess that could be a problem. Noelle cocked her head, clasped her hands behind her back, and swayed back and forth in what seemed like a disturbing attempt to look cute. You sure you know how to count, old man? She said. Fucking, I hate that image. Fucking
Smug.
The smug anime girl. That was pretty good. I think it was a really interesting choice to basically take the buildup of this crowded area and turn it into a straight clearing like fight, rather than have these like individual one-offs and like the groups try and hunt people down. Because that's what I expected, but I don't necessarily know if it's going to be a bad thing. I'm curious to see what you do with this, with the Fifth Dead and Marie and Musashi coming in and whatnot, how that's going to look like. Because there's no way, if everyone's cleared out but them, that Musashi and the Fifth Dead guy can't, like, instantly find them. But, like, are they going to wait to see how the battle turns out? Are they going to join the fray? Whose sides are going to be on whose? Genuinely curious how you're going to pull this off, and whether it will be spectacular or fall short. I'm inclined to believe it'll be spectacular, but, I mean, this is not the approach I would have expected, but we'll see how it goes. I'm excited.
Well, thank you for listening, everyone, and watching.
Yeah, we need a question for the viewers.
Oh, yes, of course.
And I think I have one. Now, this question, this one really only applies to men in the audience who are a little bit on the older side.
No.
Are you sure you know how to count? All right, that's it. Yeah.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.